I'm so grateful to everyone here, to the wise words that we've heard from everyone. So grateful to all those who've come out in support. So grateful to the press who's come out to cover this event. I'm especially grateful to Abandon Biden, now Abandon Harris, for your incredible courage, for your vision, for your unstoppable determination here to stand up and lead the way forward. Not only to stop genocide, but also to hold our highest officers of the land, to hold the White House and its occupants accountable for genocide. Because without that, there is no democracy. So Abandon Biden, Abandon Harris, thank you so much for what you're doing, not just for the Arab American community, not just for the Palestinian community, but for all Americans. You are helping us assert our democracy again, our democracy that is on life support. I want to focus my remarks on the myth, which is really a propaganda, that you're throwing your vote away by voting against genocide, mainly because you're voting for an underdog. So there is this propaganda, this extortion of your vote, that it would be a waste of your vote to vote against genocide. And I want to speak to that. First of all, genocide is the moral imperative of our time. 200,000 people who have been slaughtered on our phone screens, on our computer screens, 2 million being bombed, denied food, water, shelter, sanitation, medical care, hospitals, schools, universities destroyed, journalists murdered. Over 1,000 children have had leg amputations without anesthesia. That is a symbol of the brutality and the cruelty of this genocide. If you vote for genocide, you are consenting to it and you are enabling it. Don't let them talk you into it. Don't let them talk you out of your humanity. That, above all, is why we must hold our elected officials accountable and vote to end genocide. Otherwise, you are part of that genocide. Voting against genocide is a practical imperative because 500,000 lives are on the line right now, according to the United Nations, from starvation, who may die over the course of the next month. And now there is polio and cholera thrown into the mix. Every vote against genocide is a shot across the bow of the empire, announcing that its days are numbered and that the opposition is getting organized and we will not be stopped. That builds the pressure for a ceasefire right now and a weapons embargo right now and brings the day closer when we will achieve them. So do not think for a minute that your vote against genocide is just a theoretical vote or just a vote which is hypothetical. This vote has power, and it has power right now. As Frederick Douglass said, power concedes nothing without a demand. Your vote is that demand. Our vote is our only power in a democracy that is bought and paid for by billionaires. If we do not use that power to vote for what we want, then we are giving up that power. That, again, is why we must vote against genocide. Voting for the lesser evil disappears your opposition to genocide. In fact, there is no lesser evil. We have two greater evils, one conducting genocide now, the other saying to finish the job. There is no lesser evil. We say forget the lesser evil, fight for the greater good, like our lives depend on it, because our lives do depend on it. What goes down in Gaza goes down for all of us. In Gaza, we are looking at the end of human rights, the end of international law, the normalization of the torture and murder of children on an industrial scale. If you're okay with that, go ahead and vote for it. If you're not okay with it, we can stop it because the majority of the American people has gone on record over and over again. We oppose this genocide. If democracy prevails, we will stop this genocide in this election, if not before this election. Because simply by building our movements, by running our campaigns, by reaching out to voters, by tabling, by phone banking, by door knocking, by flyering, by showing up. Remember, they want us to think that we are few and far between. We are not. The majority of the American people are struggling. 60% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. Half of Americans are barely managing to pay their rent from month to month. 100 million Americans are locked into medical debt, 44 into student debt. This is who our agenda addresses, because the same forces that are conducting genocide in Gaza are robbing us blind here at home, consuming half of our congressional budget so that we cannot afford the health care, the housing, the education, dealing with the climate crisis, which we have all the resources in the world to deal with if they were not being exhausted by these endless wars and the endless war machine of which that genocide in Gaza is an expression. So they want us to think that we are small and powerless, that resistance is futile. That is a propaganda campaign, that is a psyop in order to disarm us. We do have majority power. Remember, 1 out of every 3 eligible voters chose not to vote in 2020. 1 out of every 3. And then add to that the numbers who oppose genocide, the numbers who are stuck in student debt. These are the numbers of people to whom our agenda speaks, because those of us who are calling for peace and an end to genocide are also calling for an end to the war on working people here at home. So this is a unifying agenda. This is a mobilizing agenda. This is about us having the courage of our convictions and moving forward. We're in a dark moment right now because the Kool-Aid is running very strong right now for the Harris campaign. This is Obama mania 2.0. Many of us have lived through this before a couple times. It will pass. It will pass. You know, Kamala Harris has not had a single challenging interview yet, nor a press conference. So you can be sure the honeymoon will not last, because the policies are what they are, because this person has a track record that has put Americans into this moment of despair, this moment of struggle, this moment of agony. That agony is in our foreign policy, and that agony is in our domestic policy. That agony is very much a product of the Republican and Democratic parties. Do not think for a moment that the Democratic Party is the answer to fascism. It would be more accurate to say it is the cause of fascism. Why is that? It's because the Democrats have pushed this policy, the so-called neoliberal agenda of privatization, of austerity, of major tax giveaways to the super wealthy, and of endless war. That has led to the disemployment, the loss of about 30 million jobs for working people in this country over the last several decades. That has created an enormous amount of misery. Add to that the Wall Street bailouts and the NAFTA shipping of our jobs overseas. So this is what drives the shift to the right. This is what drives right-wing extremism, when people have incredible economic misery and insecurity inflicted on them. And the answer to that is like what we just saw in France, where the parties of the left basically get together and oppose the right. That right-wing victory was predicted. And the tables were turned.